Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the TV, and I react to it over here. So if you like TV shows, you like to binge watch TV shows, you like to talk about TV shows, you have found the right place. So please subscribe to my channel and watch the videos of the shows that you like to watch. I cover all of it over here. I cover the true crime, I cover the reality shows, I cover the trending shows on Apple and Netflix and everywhere else. And that brings me to today's show that we're going to talk about, which is Chimp Crazy. That is currently trending at #2 on Max. And let me tell you how I got to watching this show. Okay, so several people reached out to me and said, you got to watch this show, Chimp Crazy. And to be honest with you, I really had very little interest in it. I put it on my list as like the next show that I was going to watch because I knew that it was getting a lot of attention. And so I thought, okay, people are going to want to know what I think about this show. I also knew that it was only 4 parts. And so I thought, okay, that's a pretty quick show to watch. I can watch it in like one night. And whatever. So the other night, I got completely caught up on Sister Wives, and I kind of was like, I don't know what to watch now. I've been watching Sister Wives. I mean, that's the show I've been binging. You know, I've been watching a bunch of other shows on top of that, caught up in all my reality shows, Big Brother, The Housewives, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so I'm like, I don't really know what to watch next. And I said that actually in my vlog, and all these people like were DMing me like, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch that. And so I was like, I don't know what to watch next, right? Well, I had on my list, the top of my list, Chimp Crazy. So I was kind of going through everything, and I was like, okay, what should I watch? And I started watching Chimp Crazy, and I was like, I can't do this. I literally have no interest in this whatsoever. Like, I could care less. I could care less about this. I have no interest in this whatsoever. And so I went over to Apple, and I started Lady in the Lake, which will probably be the show that I watch tonight. I might start it tonight. And so I went over and I started watching Lady in the Lake. I got like 2 minutes into that, and I was like, I'm not really feeling this tonight. Like, I want to watch some like documentary. I want to watch like something that I can like really get my teeth into documentary. You know? And so I went over to Netflix, and there was like nothing that was popping out to me. So Max has, because Max has joined, you know, the forces with like 5 different channels or streaming services at this point. So they have a lot of true crime over there. So I went over there and I was like, okay, I'm going to look at the true crime. Well, I was going through the true crime, and there was this documentary that was about this boy that went missing in 1979 when he was like 6 or 7. I was born in 72, so I would have been that age. The documentary is called Have You Seen Andy? And so I was going to watch that. Well, I was kind of like looking underneath there, and Chimp Crazy kept on coming up. Everywhere I would look, Chimp Crazy kept on coming up. So then I was like, are there any new true crime shows that are trending on Max? And so I went and looked, and there were no true crime shows that were trending, but Chimp Crazy was #2. And I was like, okay, let me give this a shot. I will try 20 or 30 minutes of it. If I can't do it, then I'm done. I'm not going to watch it anymore, okay? Let me just tell you that I ended up, was it 2 nights ago I think I started that? It was 2 nights ago, because it was Sunday night. And so I watched the first 2 episodes of it. I think the first 2 episodes and part of the third. And I just like, I mean, 10 minutes into the show, I was like, I was in it to win it. First of all, I did not know that the director of this show owned Area, the nightclub in New York City in the 80s and 90s. I did not know that. I think it was the late 80s that he owned it. I did not know that Eric Good, the director of Chimp Crazy, owned Area nightclub, which for me, as somebody that has followed the Club Kid culture for years and years and years and the history of it, I was completely unaware. I mean, Area was like this huge club, like Limelight and the Tunnel and things like that, and Discoteria. And so when I was looking him up the other night, I was like, he owned Area? He owned it from like 1985 to 1987 or 89 or something like that. But I also did not know that he had directed the Lion King, I was going to call it, Tiger King. I did not know that he had directed Tiger King, which I loved Tiger King. I thought that documentary was so interesting, and just like, it was like crazy town. It was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable, right? So I was like, I started, and they talk about that at the very beginning of it, right? And they show this woman, and her name is Tanya Haddix, and she has like these little monkeys at the beginning that she's showing. I think they're called Gibbons or Gibsons or something like that. They're real cute. And she calls herself the Dolly Parton of the chimpanzee world, okay? Well, I think she calls herself the Dolly Parton of the chimpanzee world because, physically, of how she thinks she looks. Oh, hi, honey. How are you? Little Boo Radley is making an appearance. So I think she calls herself the Dolly Parton of the chimpanzee world because of how she physically looks. But there's really nothing else other about that than her, about how she treats animals, how she treats people, how she speaks, anything like that, that I would equate as a longtime fan of Dolly Parton. I actually think it's kind of offensive to Dolly Parton that she calls herself the Dolly Parton of the chimpanzee world. And I will say this, that I feel very different about Tanya Haddix than I do about the people in the Tiger King. So we'll get to that in just a second. So I started watching this. Now, if you haven't watched Chimp Crazy, you should probably watch it before. I don't think that my reaction to it will ruin anything for you. It's 4 parts. Each part is about 56 to 60 minutes. It's really easy to binge because every episode, it's just like more craziness occurs, more craziness happens and things like that. But let me read you the synopsis of it. Former nurse turned exotic animal broker Tanya Haddix spends her days caring for animals in captivity, referring to herself as the Dolly Parton of chimps. However, her limitless love for one chimpanzee spins into a wild cat and mouse game with authorities and an animal rights group. Through the experiences of Tanya and other chimp moms, Chimp Crazy is a series that reveals the bonds between owners and their highly intelligent great ape pets, as well as the risks to the welfare of the animals themselves. So the documentary is really about Tanya Haddix and this chimpanzee Tonka that she had. And Tonka was a very famous chimpanzee. He was in a lot of movies, he was in a lot of commercials, and he was actually in a movie called Buddy with Alan Cumming. Now that's important because Alan Cumming is a huge part of this documentary. So the first part of the documentary is really talking about, it starts off with this woman in Sarasota, and she owns chimps. I think at the time that the documentary ends, she still has 3, and one of them just, I think his name is Chance, has just passed away. And she, all her life, like from the age of 7, wanted to be like the best chimpanzee trainer in the world. And so she's done that. She does these shows and things like that. And so it kind of starts off with her. And then they ask her, like, well, if you wanted to get a chimpanzee, where would you get one? And she says, well, there used to be a woman in Missouri. So then it goes to this woman in Missouri, and her name is Connie. Okay, and Connie has, I think at one point she has like 38 chimpanzees or something like that. But then she has this like outside structure that's like 2 stories that she builds. But by the time that you meet Connie, well, you don't really ever meet Connie. She doesn't really want to be interviewed, and they just catch like glimpses of her, and there's like one sit down interview with her. But at the time that you meet Connie in her facility in Missouri, and it's like this small town in Missouri, Tanya Haddix has come there, and she's now basically running this facility and taking care of all these chimps. And so, to be honest with you, I didn't really know where this documentary was going. I think that was part of why I wasn't really that invested. I was like, is this just going to be about people that love chimps and take care of chimps and show chimps and circuses and things like that? Now, for those of you that do not know and don't watch my other channels regularly, I've been a vegetarian for, I think I just passed 6 years. And the way that I became a vegetarian, it's interesting watching this documentary, was that I had watched like this 3-minute propaganda video from PETA. Now, I know that PETA has a lot of their own issues. I'm fully aware of that, right? But I had watched some propaganda video about PETA, about if you can be a vegetarian for 30 days, then you can greatly, and I'm not a vegan, I'm a vegetarian, I want to make that very, very clear, but this show kind of made me rethink some of that, in all honesty. And so it was talking about this 3-part propaganda video was like, if you can be a vegetarian for 30 days, then you can greatly reduce your carbon imprint on the world. And I was like, I can do anything for 30 days. And so that was when I started my vegetarian journey. In all honesty, I was kind of scared to stop because at that time, there were a lot of people online that were vegans and vegetarians that were stopping, and they were getting a lot of criticism for it. Or they would say they were, but then they would eat something and then they would get called out for it. And they had like built their entire platforms, and I wasn't doing that. I was just doing it for myself. And I actually had a talk with a friend of mine who had been a vegetarian for 31 years, and I said something to her, and she goes, if you're doing it for yourself, then all vegetarians and vegans learn as they go. Like, it's not a perfect science. Like, you learn as you go about cross-contamination and why you're doing it. Around that time, I saw a video from Jenna Marbles, and at that time, I was just kind of doing it because I thought, well, I can contribute to the world in some kind of positive way. It wasn't a health issue for me, although I did lose 20 pounds right away, but I'm not a healthy vegetarian by any means, and I eat a lot of crap. But I didn't really have a purpose for why I was going to do it. I've, always been an animal lover and dog lover, but not really on that kind of level. And so I was watching a Jenna Marbles video, and in the Jenna Marbles video, she talked about why she was a vegetarian or vegan. I don't remember which one. And she said it was because one day she was looking at her dogs. Something, I'm simplifying it, but she said she was looking at her dogs, and her dogs have personalities and souls, and she was like, I couldn't eat my dogs. And that so resonated with me. And I started looking at all different kinds of animals in different ways. I am not the vegetarian. My husband is a meat eater. My friends and family are meat eaters. I'm not somebody that will sit across the table from you and shame you. I don't really ever talk about it. most people in my life, other than my close friends and family, don't even know that I'm a vegetarian. I mean, I'll go out to dinner with people and they'll be like, you're a vegetarian? I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm not somebody that preaches about it. But I do feel very strongly about why I've chosen to stay a vegetarian today, and that is because I really believe in the souls and the lives and the personalities of animals just like us. And so watching this really hit me differently than I thought it would. So really what the documentary is about is that PETA gets involved, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, they get involved because they find out that these chimpanzees at Connie's place are being, they think, mistreated. And so they put up this huge, what do you call it? Like this, they file this like lawsuit against her and all this kind of stuff. And so Tanya takes over. So basically Connie hands the place over to her, and then Tanya takes it over, and Tanya's like, I'll fight it tooth and nail. Because she loves these chimps, Connie loves these chimps and all this kind of stuff. Well, she loses the case because she's supposed to do like all of these changes on the facility, make them cleaner, give the animals more room to like go outside and do all these kinds of things. And she doesn't do that. She says she does. She says something like she spent like $500,000, and the attorney for PETA says she didn't come anywhere near $500,000 in the work. I mean, she basically threw some paint on the walls, but and this is the part where it kind of started changing for me, where I started like really seeing these enclosures they were living in that were very, very small. The food they were being fed was like Gatorade and like cake. And I was like, I mean, even at the end, she shows this monkey eating a donut. I don't know what monkeys and chimpanzees are supposed to eat, but I don't think probably donuts are the healthiest thing. I know they're not the healthiest thing for human beings. And so, you know, it kind of started changing for me a little bit on how I was viewing this. And so Tanya Haddix, then, she's in charge of this place. Well, PETA comes in, and they win the lawsuit. And so they're coming, I think at that point they have like 7 or 8 chimps at this place. And so they come in because Connie and her husband like lost all the chimps before. And they got rid of them. Now, they're also in the animal brokerage business, which means they find exotic animals and they sell them to people, okay? Which is also part of why a lot of these animals are going extinct. They say that at the end of the documentary. They say that the black market trade of exotic animals is what's leading partly to the extinction of chimpanzees. So it's not just about, you know, some celebrity or somebody wanting to have this chimpanzee baby because it's so cute or whatever kind of exotic animal. It's literally leading to the extinction that these animals might not exist in the next, you know, 10 to 20 years. And so I'm watching this. So Tonya Harding's like fighting tooth and nail. Well, they come in to remove the animals from the facility. And one of the animals is missing, and the animal is Tonka. And that's really where Alan Cummings comes in, and because he talks about how he did this movie with Tonka. Tonka's like a celebrity chimpanzee. And there's a couple of them are some celebrities. One of them did, I can't remember the chimpanzee's name, but he did a lot of greeting cards. There's another chimpanzee that did this. Tonka was, I think, in Babe, Pig in the City, which is one of my favorite movies. I love Babe and Babe, Pig in the City. And I totally remember him in the movie, too. Like, when they showed him, he plays like this chimpanzee couple. And I totally remember that part of the movie when they showed it. And then he was also in this movie called Buddy. He was in George of the Jungle, I think. And, or maybe that was one of the other chimps, but I think it was Buddy. So Alan Cumming has this connection with Tonka. And at the point that we meet Tonka, Tonka supposedly has had a stroke. He has, severe heart issues and things like that. So they come and they remove all the chimpanzees to put him on a chimpanzee wildlife sanctuary, and Tonka's missing. Well, Tonya Harding, excuse me, that's I, Tonya, the movie. Tonya Haddix says that Tonka died from cardiac arrest and that they got rid of him and like burned him, and that she's got the ashes and whatever. They bring in this specialist that goes in and takes this meat and puts it in a crematorium, and basically she's lying, okay? Well, they have hired this guy that's a director by proxy that used to be like a clown in a lot of these circuses, and he knows these animals. So he's developed, the director, Eric Good, has hired him. So he's developed a rapport with Tonya. Well, Tonya basically tells him that, I'm giving you the shortened version of it. Tonya tells him that Tonka's still alive and that she's got him in this enclosure in her basement. So she's built out this enclosure in her basement. She's now moved to the lakes of the Ozarks in Missouri, and she had him at this guy's place in Ohio for 6 months, and then she brought him back to her house because that's when, like, the feds and PETA were looking for her. So if she had him at the house, they would have found her. She invited them to her house. And then she builds this enclosure, and it's this huge enclosure in the, not huge, not for a chimpanzee, but it's like 2 rooms, and in the basement. And this is where, like, I started, like, I don't know. So then it's about this fight for where is Tonka. They offer this, like, I think, $10,000 reward. Alan Cummings matches it with another 10, so it's $20,000 reward. And then it's like, and this is where I kind of was like, I don't really know about this. You can tell that Tonka is really fading, that he emotionally is not happy. You can tell that with her interactions with him. And, I mean, she'll tell him something like, pick up that paper, and he does it. But he's just a very trained chimpanzee at that point. He doesn't seem happy. Actually, when they get him, he's, like, overweight. He doesn't have any heart issues and stuff like that. So everything she said about him was a lie, and she was ready to put him down, which is so sad. But at this point, it's like, where, as a documentarian, do you get involved? And that's the question that Eric Good has. Like, do we turn her over to PETA and the feds, or like, is the chimpanzee at risk? Is his health at risk? And so she's told this other guy, this director by proxy, that she has him down there, and he's got video of it. He's seen Tonka and things like that. And so then it comes down to that she's gonna have the vet come and put him down. And so that's when the director steps in and PETA gets involved. And I was kind of surprised that the director didn't get involved before then. I mean, I understand that from a documentary point of view. His excuse is that he thinks that she'll point him in the direction of other people that have chimpanzees, but that never really happens on the documentary. I believe that his intention was that he just wanted to get more footage for the documentary. He just wanted the story to continue to carry out at the expense that Tonka might die. That kind of bothered me, if you want to know the truth about the documentary. Now, I do believe that Eric Good, who's a conservationist and really believes in animal rights and stuff like that, I think he really does and did think this through, and really does care about chimpanzees. I looked into his history, and his mother, who Tanya Haddix calls a prostitute and all this kind of stuff, she's a conservationist as well. I mean, he has this in his blood, you know. But it bothers me a little bit that they waited so long with Tonka. That was the part in the show where I just kind of was like, the second you find out the wrongdoing of it, and I also kind of wondered, could they be implicated in this? Like, because they know that she's hiding him out and they're not turning it in, you know, it's obstruction of justice. And so I was kind of like, why aren't they turning this chimpanzee in? And so finally, there's this magazine article that's written in the Rolling Stone magazine, and she interviews Tanya and things like that, and then PETA gets involved, and then they do remove Tonka, and they put Tonka on this wildlife sanctuary, which, in all honesty, at that point, they talk about Tonka being a, like, he's so humanized at this point because he's lived in a human world. He's been in movies, he interacts with her, all this kind of stuff, that he doesn't really know how to live with other chimpanzees. I will say this, and the footage that the documentarian in defense of Tonka showed of Tonka at the wildlife sanctuary, Tonka did not seem very happy. I don't know how you gauge that, but from what I saw, he just seemed sad to me. He just seemed like he was confused and he was sad. They only showed like 2 or 3 minutes of him on the sanctuary, so that's probably not great to judge. I am a believer that I think wild animals and animals like that do belong where in their natural habitat. I 100% believe that. It's one of the reasons why I won't go to zoos today. I'm not comfortable with that. I have in the past. It's kind of a decision that I've made in the last couple of years. Even zoos that are reputable, there's just an ick feeling to me about it that I just don't like. I've changed a lot about how I feel, and I continue to change about how I feel about this kind of stuff. Interspersed between the story of Tanya, Connie, the chimpanzees, Tonka, and the other chimpanzees, they share different stories about basically that people adopt these chimpanzees and fall in love with these chimpanzees when they're babies, but then they get large, and they get powerful, and they're erratic, and they think that they're like babies, they think that they're like their kids, but they're really not. And so they cite several different instances. One was this chimpanzee named Travis that attacked basically his mom's friend, his caregiver, and another one is Buck. They share like 3 or 4 stories of how these chimpanzees attacked humans that they knew. Incidentally, at the end, Tanya Haddix goes into this chimpanzee with an adult chimpanzee, and she gets attacked at the end of it. She doesn't blame it on the chimpanzee, and she even says, like, even after being attacked, I would own a chimpanzee today. But what it shows is that these people have no real training on how to deal with a chimpanzee or what the needs or the desires are of a chimpanzee. This one chimpanzee, it was so sad with this one woman. Her son in there talks and everything, and they talk about how, like, she was, like, drinking a lot, and after her husband died, basically the chimpanzee replaces her husband. And they say in there that her son says, she just wanted him to sit still while she sat there and drank and watched TV at night. I mean, this chimpanzee has no life. They don't eat, like, what they're supposed to eat. They're not drinking water. They're drinking, like, soda, coffee. I mean, the one woman at the end says, these are chimps that have been humanized. They like coffee. They don't want to drink water. And I'm like, how do you know what this chimpanzee needs? Just because you think you know, you don't know what this chimpanzee chimpanzee needs. They do show other parts of the sanctuary. The sanctuary is beautiful. I think it's in Florida. I mean, it's like 12 islands. It's beautiful. And the majority of these chimpanzees seem very happy. Tonka, I looked it up to see where Tonka, if he's still there. And it says on here, how is Tonka the chimp doing now? Tonka is thriving in his new life and has grown more comfortable socializing with his fellow chimps. Save the Chimps, that's the sanctuary. Staffer Jenny Friedman said on the sanctuary's website, when Tonka came to us, he was more human-oriented than chimp-oriented and rarely involved himself in group politics. So that might be why he seems sad at first. I also think that they're taking him away, even rightfully so, from the only person that he's ever known his entire life, which was Tanya and, you know, and Connie. These other stories were so sad to me, especially like this one woman. She knew she couldn't take care of him anymore. I think that was Buck, and it was in Oregon. And she couldn't take care of him anymore. So basically when her friend was, or her daughter was attacked, she had the police shoot him and kill him. And it's like, okay, well, you wouldn't, I don't know that you would necessarily do that with a human being. You would have them restrain him, but you wouldn't kill him, you know? And the woman from PETA, like, I think she's the CEO or president of PETA, she just starts crying. Like, she's like, it didn't have to happen. Like, this life didn't have to be lost like that. And that's it, right? Like, these people have no clue what they're doing with these animals. You know, watching the end of it, when you watch the end of it, like, Tanya is like starting this petting zoo and she's got all these exotic animals, and I didn't really think about it, but then the woman from PETA says, I believe that the zoo is basically a way to market her trafficking exotic animals. And I was like, oh, you're 100% right. In fact, they slap her with $240,000, $240 or $270,000 worth of bills for lawyer fees for this whole case. And the attorney that she calls Pee Wee Herman, that she has huge issues with, he writes her a letter and says, we will absolve all of the charges if you guarantee that you will not own a zoo, that you will not traffic any kind of animals or sell any kind of animals. And she basically just laughs at it. And she's like, what? No, I'm not going to do this. All they're asking you is to stop the mistreatment of animals, you know? And so, and I'm somebody that knows a lot about this because I watch it online. If you watch my, just as an example, but if you watch my Instagram, I follow like 30% or 40% of what I follow is all rescue animals, rescue squirrels, rescue farms, rescue dogs. And so I do believe in the ethical treatment of animals and the ethical, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I don't believe in the trafficking of animals. Animals are souls as well. They're beings that deserve to be treated that way. And this is the thing that was hard for me. Tanya sits down on camera with the director at the end. She's like, if my story's going to be told, then I'm going to be part of it. And I respected that, right? What's hard for me is, because her son says at the end, she's feeding these little baby monkeys and they're adorable. She's feeding them by bottle, you know? And she says something at the end that she would like own another chimpanzee or something like that. But I never once doubted that Tanya really truly loved these chimpanzees. I don't ever doubt that. I didn't doubt that about the majority of the people that they showed. The woman in Florida, I believe she really loved these chimpanzees. Do I think that they go in there and they talk about that these people replace chimps with babies? I think that's a lot of it. I think it's like a lot of these women and their weird attachment to these chimps. It's really bizarre, but at the same time, it's very sad because you can tell that they have like a lot of issues that need to be worked out probably in therapy that they're resolving. I mean, none of them really get along with their kids or their spouses, or they don't have spouses. They just have these monkeys they take care of, you know? And then I don't doubt that they love them. I do not doubt that this woman, Tanya, loves these animals. I don't think she can see outside of her own selfishness to see that trafficking these animals, that, transporting these animals. I mean, she has them in blankets in the backseat of her car, just like sitting there like human beings. I mean, even like a baby you would put in a baby seat, you know? And it's like, she's just like transporting these animals. I don't think she can see outside of her own selfishness, her own need for these animals, how she could possibly, like the PETA guy says, I hope that in the end, what she sees if she watches this back is that maybe she was, you know, that in hindsight, maybe these chimpanzees needed more than she could offer them. And that's kind of the hope, right? Like I was kind of hoping, like she says in there, something like, I just wish they would let me go and see Tonka. And if they would let me go and see Tonka, but then she says, I would take him out of there. Like, I would devise some kind of plan to get him out of there. And I'm like, that's why they won't let you go see Tonka. Because I thought, maybe if she just played by their rules and said, okay, I'm never going to traffic animals again or sell animals, which would only benefit the animals and her. If she really loves animals, you know, it's like, then do the right thing. You are not the expert about this. You're working with people that are experts on this, okay? You are chimp crazy because you're in love with these animals and you think you know what's best for them and you don't know what's best for them. But let's go to experts that have research done. I mean, there's been research, thousands of research studies done about, you know, animals and their, you know, native habitats and what that is good, how that does good for them. She doesn't know what's best for these animals. And yet she won't let back because I was like, well, maybe, why don't you go volunteer at a sanctuary? Why don't you go volunteer, you know, at a rescue? You could still be around animals. It's not about owning and controlling an animal. I don't know. The documentary, to me, it was very, very well done, but it was sad. It was really, really sad because the documentary was really about these chimpanzees, but and what was crazy to me was that they let Alan Cummings at the end go and from afar see Tonka, but they wouldn't even let her do that because they don't trust her. And that was the thing, is they don't trust her around animals. And yet she proclaims to be the biggest animal lover in the world, you know? And it's baffling to me. Like I said, I don't doubt that she loves these animals, but sometimes love is toxic. You know, love is not supposed to cause pain. And when your love is causing pain and you're saying that your chimpanzee has had a stroke and it has heart issues and then they find out, no, it's just overweight, it's never had heart issues. You're literally ready to put down this chimpanzee to get out of legal issues that you love, and you say that this chimpanzee is one of your kids. You're ready to put down one of your kids to get out of legal issues and put a bunch of medical issues on them the chimpanzee doesn't even have. They do a full examination on him. They're like, he doesn't have any heart issues. She's ready to put him down because of his heart issues. Sad. It was really, really sad. But it was a fantastically done documentary, and I'm really, really glad that I watched it. So if you're looking for something to binge, it's 4 parts. It's fantastically done. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.